So the first day in this holiday, we went to the Lane Peninsula and climbed a mountain with a very well preserved Iron Age fort on top. We were going to climb the second mountain in the range and also the highest on the peninsula, but the clouds were too low and the summit was covered in clouds, so we didn't.
Well, you could see all these different shapes of what used to be little stone huts, and they must have been really, really strong, and they probably were, those cavemen, to build that entire thing. And also, there was this sort of like tunnel, and also they must have been really small once upon a time, because Oliver couldn't even fit through the tunnel without bending his head.
We descended and went on an sort of exploration across the peninsula to try and find a place we could have lunch. We had to have it in this lovely cafe in an extremely remote valley.
And also we went to the beach. And we went swimming in the sea even though it was icy cold, but Oliver somehow made it look like an advert swimming or something. Like his little blonde head bobbing in the water saying, "Oh, it's so warm, come on Mum, take a few further steps." But really, it was more like an advert for freezing. And so we did get in and it was quite fun. And I found like zillion pebbles, and I found pitch black ones, I found bright quartzy ones, I found spotted ones, I found striped ones. I smuggled my entire collection of rocks, even though Mummy and Daddy only said 5. I smuggled the entire thing, which is about 50 or something.
Dad and I went along the beach and saw some seals and a dead sheep and lots of rocks. The seals were very interesting. The next day, Dad's friend came round, who's also a professional mountaineer, to take us up an extremely rocky mountain called Trevan. It's literally covered in crags and cliffs, and there's almost no way up except by scrambling. There was a very easy route where you only had to use your hands once. We took a slightly harder route, but prettier and more interesting route up the north ridge of Tryfan to reach the summit. We just walked up to a scree-covered bottom of the ridge. Then, eventually, after a little bit of scrambling up a few faces, we reached a proper ridge when at the Cannon Stone. Then we scrambled up some more to where you could see the summit area, which looks like a few giant, pointy, awesome things pointing into nearly the clouds.
And at one point, like if you slipped, you just, because it was like, well, there was this bit of a corner, and you were here, and there was a sheer drop here, and you had to reach out and go there, on the other side, and that was extremely difficult.
Then we came up to the summit after some lovely scrambling over a gully.
When we got to the top, it was also really good.
So we reached the summit, which is a rocky plateau except has 2 pointy boulders in the shape of pinnacles that are known as Adam and Eve, and the traditional thing is to climb up onto one of them and jump from the other. We didn't do that because it's very exposed, so I just climbed up one.
And so I climbed it, as well as Oliver, and sat in it, and I was really, really scared because on the other side I could see like a really sheer drop and like all these giant rocks, and I knew what would happen if I slipped. So that was why I looked terrified in the picture.
On the descent it was much easier. You only had to use your hands once, even though we were in a cloud. And then eventually we went past a lake called Limbochwed, which has a nickname of Australia Lake due to its shape, and then we went down past this tumbling stream back to where we started on the shores of Ogwen. So next day, this was probably the best day we had. We didn't have Steve anymore, but we went back to the Ogwen Valley and went up the place we went down from Tryfan by the waterfall. It was very steep and tiring, but we eventually made it back to Llyn-Bochwelydd. Then the path went up to the coal between Tryfan and Bristly Ridge on the Glydavac. We could have gone up Bristly Ridge, which is another scramble, but we decided not to. Instead, went down a bit into Cwm Tryfan, then went onto the ridge, had lunch when we were on the main ridge. It was a very big ridge, unlike Tryfan, which was like 20 metres wide or even 5 metres wide at its thinnest. Then we went up the ridge, past some rocks, to the summit of Glydavac, and eventually we reached the summit. Then we scrambled down, so we kept going along the ridge, even though we're in cloud now, to Castelligwent, which is like this pointy rock thing. Then we continued up again to Glydavawa, which is over 1,000 metres high, and its summit has 2 rocky pinnacles. I went to the 5 Fingers, which is a weird tour on Glydavawa. We went down the scree slope at the bottom of Glydavawa. Then it was a very horrible descent on sliding scree and a badly eroded path. Then we zigzagged down on steps through the Devil's Kitchen, where there was an amazing view of some Arctic alpine plants growing into a cliff, and also there's an amazing view of a great sort of crack in the cliffs where there's a waterfall, and also just a random tiny tree somehow growing in the cliff. We kept descending down the Devil's Kitchen to Llyn Idwal, which was a lovely lake surrounded by cliffs on 3 sides, and then we just continued round Idwal to the outflow, then just went down on the main path back to Ogwen. The next day, we mainly just spent the day playing board games, but at the end of the day, we had a lovely walk in the Bed Gelert Forest just opposite the valley from where we are, and so we walked up into the forest to a small lake that had been dammed but was still small, and walked all the way around this lake and walked back.
And also went for a walk in the woods. And that was fun. And we talked about chickens.
The next day, we attempted to climb another mountain with Granny and Grandad called Molhebog. It was it went over the railway track a few times, and then went up on a grassy slope to its northeast ridge below a fearsome cliff. Then we went up on the ridge, but it was a very windy day, and it eventually at a point on the ridge it just got so windy we had to come down. Myself, Granny and Grandad went for a walk round Bed Gelert over a gorge and over a moor to a historic site known as Gelert's Grave, where according to legend, Prince Llewellyn, when he returned from hunting and had left his dog at home with his child, saw his dog covered in blood and looked in his cot and there was no child. He killed his dog thinking he had killed the child, but just when the dog died, that he heard his child cry, and the child was next to a dead dog that Gellert had killed. So there's a grave and like a memorial to him. Yesterday, we couldn't do much because of high winds, but in the morning we went back to Lyn Idwal and Ogwen and walked all the way around Idwal, which was very hard because of extremely strong winds, but we managed it.